Hi. So there's something I've been wanting to talk to you about that I'm a little scared to talk about. And the reason why is because there's a part of me that just doesn't feel like people are going to accept what I'm about to say, which is that you can change yourself in any way that you want to. And I have a practice that I can show you that can help you understand how you perceive the world, as well as helping you move through that process of perceiving the world that will enable you to change the way that you process and see the world. And I know that sounds weird and maybe a little bit convoluted and abstract. So let me ground it in this kind of practice that I want to show you a little later, which is just like moving energy through your hands and paying attention to what's going on in your mind. This is the thing that has set me on my path for where I need to go, and actually kind of like manifested in me realizing that I was a woman. And then the gateway of walking through that and transitioning opens up this world of how energy and perception are a part of one's innate being. And my innate being, as I've gone through my past lives and recollected this information, which is a lot of things for me to express and share because it's very personal and very close to me. And I know that most people probably don't believe any of this. They may find it to be hokey pokey. And I guess I should say, frankly, I don't care, but I really do care, because what I create is not just that. I also create very pragmatic and very grounded content for helping people work through themselves, and also understand myself. This is about personal growth, and that's a very tangible thing that doesn't require any kind of belief system or any way of acting out into the world that feels any kind of like new agey, So for me to then share some more new agey or slightly different content, I feel a little bit of friction with this because I don't want to alienate you if this isn't something that you're into. And as I say that, I say, well, if you're not into it, then that's probably fine, and you'll accept that, and you'll know which ones that you want and which ones that you don't want. But really, like, what I want to achieve is really bridging this gap, because I feel like the new age world and the more pragmatic, practical, self-help, personal growth, that kind of world, they can be interweaved, but sometimes they're super alienating, especially to queer and trans folks, because I don't know about you if you've ever been in a space where they're like sacred femininity or sacred masculine, or you've been just misgendered or not like appropriately treated. Like, these new age spaces are always, now I'm just ranting, but there's a cisgender, like a white cisgender aspect to a lot of these new age experience spaces. And I don't really feel like I'm accepted, or that I'm welcome, or that somehow being trans is something wrong, or that it's not a spiritual thing. It's just, my feelings about it are dumb, and I haven't had anyone who's been like outwardly hostile to me, but as I was transitioning, I did find people misgendering me, or not even just understanding this and maybe thinking that it's unnatural, which is, I was able to address by saying, hey, like, indigenous communities have been trans, for ages, and that this is just a symptom of trans history erasure rather than the fact that this is a new thing. That like pre-canned response. Like, I think this is like a part of being trans, is you have to have like a certain set of pre-canned responses to certain objections, because you've been confronted with this objection enough times to know how to confront it. I feel like that's kind of the signal of an experienced trans person versus a new trans person, is the new trans person isn't well versed in all of the arguments and the forks in the conversation. Yeah, I digress. So I woke up this morning at 5:30 and rolled out of bed and started making this video on inner Kung Fu. And I wanted to share some of this with you to get your thoughts. and really just get a temperature read if this was something that you'd be interested in, or if it just doesn't resonate, or what your curiosity or what some questions you have. I just want to share a little piece, which is, I call it the art of inner kung fu. There's something that's always fascinated me with martial arts. It's this attention to the form as an art, this dogmatic discipline that leads to the compounding escalation of one's might and skill to be able to achieve the unimaginable in the face of the impossible. Kung fu movies have always exploited this myth, and the art form is capable of doing almost anything against the odds. And while that can be largely attributed to storytelling and myth, one can also truly believe that it's true. And when one applies discipline with the mind, with the body, it can be fine-tuned nearly to the nth degree, or in layman terms, it can become exponential, which is why Kung Fu fascinates me. It perpetuates the narrative that anything is possible with enough hard work and discipline, the impossible can be achieved. And that talent can be learned, and that those skills can be sharpened like a warrior's blade. Time plus concentrated effort equals ability, and if you apply yourself intentionally, your ability can go infinite. So, if you think a thing is impossible, you only make it impossible, says Bruce Lee. So I go on to talk about these things, but then I kind of like dig into this, which the practice of Kung Fu is not martial arts. The practice of Kung Fu is practice. And practice taken to any concentrated effort in any field is the act of Kung Fu. And so when we think about that, when we abstract away the concept of Kung Fu as a practice, as something where we can develop our own sense or ability, and we can apply this inwardly, we can actually progress in a way that can make us stronger, more resilient, and better people, because we're practicing an art in growing, and an art in overcoming obstacles in ourselves. And that's sort of the personal development angle that I come from around Kung Fu. But then comes the esoteric piece, which is the piece where I'm having a little bit of trouble just cognitively, not like actually like writing it, it's just sharing it, which is that there's a martial practice that I want to share about how we can do this little martial practice to help ourselves work with ourselves, because like your brain works on physical as well as like mental waves, and sometimes you can't just work within the same framework to overcome certain things. Like if you're trapped in your thoughts, sometimes a physical activity can really get you out of the mental thoughts. Has that happened to you? Have you found ways in which you've gotten around some things or processed them just by stepping away from it, or going outside, or doing some kind of activity that's changed the way that you've interacted and seen it? And so this is sort of like this thing that I want to share, which is how we can use energy and how we can use movements in our relationships with our mind to be able to do this. So I'm going to share this with you as like a preview. And if you want to try it out, please let me know, and let me know how it goes for you. It is a practice, and I will say that you need to do it for at least a week to really start to decondition the filters on your brain, because you're going to be receiving new information perhaps that your body hasn't really been paying attention to, and so it's naturally going to filter it out, so you may not feel anything, and that's fine. Just know that your body is feeling something, your brain is just ignoring these signals. That's the way I see it. Because, the brain filters out like more than 90% of the signals that it receives for you, because it deems it irrelevant. Like, can you feel your like heart or your lungs, or can you feel your spleen? Like, you're not going to feel your spleen unless your brain says, I need to send you a signal because there's something wrong. So this is kind of like something similar where we don't need to feel your energy. Okay, you get it. So, so take your hands and go like this. All right, so this is us just warming up the sensation and the feelings that we have in our hands. And now hold up your hands and feel that feeling that you're feeling in your hands and your fingers. Hopefully, you'll feel like blood and sensation kind of like going to your hands, and that's great. And acknowledge that it's probably not your imagination at this point. So you're going to take your hands and then put them here, and you may find a comfortable distance where they feel just right. Now I want you to break that distance by kind of like bringing them in, and then bringing them very closely, do not touch, and then seeing how that feels, and then bringing it out here and seeing how that feels. Now play with this space as you move in and out, and you may notice that the sensation changes depending on your distance. It may even feel like you have kind of like this bubble or this balloon of something tingly between your hands. And there might be a spot that you might find where you can kind of go in and out. And I want you to kind of find that. So as they go out here, they kind of just start to expand. And then as I start to bring them in again, they kind of like right around here is for me. And so I feel like I can kind of play with this space. Now that is not just your imagination, that's your sense of like an energy field or energy from your hands. And so that's sort of like the next thing, is just becoming attuned to the energy. But then this is where the inner Kung Fu comes in, which is starting to work with the energy as you work with your mind. So as we play with this, we can start to kind of like see how we're seeing. So this isn't supposed to be a full-blown lesson, but I'll just give you a preview. It's then to take your hands like this in kind of like a prayer position, and then to move them like this. And then, sorry, I need to do this faster. So like this, and then, and then like this. And then you bring them back. So your hands open up towards you, they go down, around, and then back, like you have two plates on your hands, and you bring them together, and then you close. Okay, so like this. And so I discovered this when I started to practice. And what I realized is every time I do this, when the hands come back, I would be perceiving something that I would be perceiving. So as I do this, I would say, oh, my hands have come together, but have they really come together? Like what am I actually seeing? It's hard to do this while I'm talking, but as you do this, watch yourself as you do this. Do you start to expect where your hands are going to be? What are you thinking as you're doing this? Do you feel like this is silly? This is stupid? Just keep kind of doing this. And as you do this, just kind of connect with the feeling of the energy, your body, and watch your mind as you do this. And this repeated motion, can really start to change the way that you're perceiving things. And you can then start to kind of like play with that, and it starts to kind of work with your brain and the left and right brain and the way that you process things. So I don't know if that was a good lesson. Let me know how that went for you. But I found it to be a very powerful practice in changing the way that I see things and allowing me to see how I change the way that I see things. And I'd like to put that into some kind of program. And I don't know, I'm just scared about sharing it with the world. So I love you, and it's really nice to see you. All the comments that you guys write mean so much to me. Shout out to Krugos for calling out the chocolate rice crackers. I ended up, the message that they sent me ended up making me eat like almost all of them. So I just wanted to share that. You guys do have an effect on me, and sometimes it's just getting me to eat more chocolate rice crackers. But seriously though, some of the updates y'all are posting are great, and I'm really excited to kind of review some of your goals this week. So that's it for today, and I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.